Hi, I'm Rob. I'm making matter. That's what I do. When I take a moment to talk about a little bit about overcoming dyslexia, you know, it's a disability for a lot of people. And I've been working with dyslexia for over 20 years, and I've been developing a streamlined approach in how to teach dyslexic, either your kid or adults, how to overcome the dyslexia. Sounds too good to be true. No, it's not. Uh, One of the things that people say is that if you have dyslexia, is that, well, let's diagnose you. So when they diagnose you, what's going to happen is that you're going to get a diagnosis and they're going to point out everything that's wrong, right? If you're a dyslexic yourself watching this, or if you have a kid that's dyslexic, you know the story, right? The interesting notion of that is that every diagnosis they put out on kids or adults, they're all going to have a different version of dyslexia. It's not going to be the same. Everybody is going to have an individual variation of the dyslexia. And one would think if you put a diagnosis on them and you know everything that's wrong, then you can reverse that and fix that. Now here's the funny thing. Anyone who's doing research or an expert in the field of dyslexia, you can ask them this question: how do you read? Seems like an obvious question. How do people actually read and understand what they're reading? And if you ask them that question, they don't know. That's pretty, if you ask that question, you're gonna hear a lot of long-winded explanation that doesn't make sense. So one of the things I've been doing over the last 20 years working with dyslexics, kids, adults and such, is that I've been streamlining how to overcome dyslexia. Because what dyslexia actually is a memory problem. And it's actually three different phases. One is an encoding problem, how you encode the words. Second thing is a retrieval of that word, and the third phase is verification. How do you verify it's actually correct? Because if you're a dyslexic or have a kid that's dyslexic, you probably, sometimes when you're trying to explain how the brain works with this stuff, well, if you buy a puzzle, you're going to have this nice picture of the box. Oh, the puzzle looks really nice. And then you have 1,000 pieces. And here's the thing, even if you have the picture of the box, you have a lot of pieces in the puzzle that you're going to fit in, and it takes time. And this is what happens with people who have, some kind of reading disability. When you're watching the word, whatever it might be in a book or, such, there's nothing wrong with your eyesight. But when you see the word, its encoding is then already present in your mind. You already have a memory of that. But if the word is not encoded properly, your brain has to search for that information like a puzzle bit, and that takes time. It slows down your reading, and usually also some of the pieces of the puzzle may be missing, so you can't get a full picture, and that means you're going to struggle with reading and whatever else. And if you're a parent, you probably heard about this stuff, that at some point they're going to tell you that dyslexia is for life. Your kid is doomed to fail, basically, because you can't overcome dyslexia, they say. It's going to be for life. And that's not necessarily true. Right? How do I know all this stuff? Because I work with kids and adults that are no longer dyslexic. They have the diagnosis of dyslexia, but they're no longer dyslexic. What I've been doing, people keep telling me it's not possible to do. And I'm like, if I done it, it's possible. It really is possible. If you've been doing it, it's actually possible, no matter what people believe. So here's what I'm going to do here, simply to make you understand how this works. If you have a kid that's dyslexic, ask them this question. Ask them to spell, very simple, straightforward, cat. That's an animal, if you didn't know that. And ask them to spell it out loud. Ask them to spell, can you spell that? And they go, oh yeah, okay, spell it out loud. Okay, C-H-E. And that's probably something like that it should sound like. Now, I'm not a native speaker of English, and my pronouncement of the letters may not be 100% English correct, but you get it. Cat, C-H-E. Now, when you ask them to spell that, you want to listen for when they do that. Because if they spell it like this, C-A-T, that means there is a space between the letter C and the letter A and T. So there's C, A, T. And that space between the C and A indicates something. That indicates that the encoding of the word is not optimal for them, and that can be fixed. And if they can spell cat really well, you can also spell a word they probably have some struggle with. And you're going to watch them, if you have a kid like that, you're going to watch them struggle like the bit of a puzzle that's missing. The brain has to search for the information, get it, back, and that takes time. And all that time slows down reading. And the second thing that happens is that processing the memory and the information and understanding what you're reading is now at halt. It's a very simple question you can ask your kid. That space between letters is actually an indication what happens in the encoding and the retrieval. And then you can, when they're watching, pulling the bits together of the letters together to a word, that's actually, part of the verification process. So dyslexia is actually a memory problem. And what we do here, what I've been doing, is to teach people how to streamline a baseline. So we establish a baseline where you can spell things in the encoding phase, verification phase, retrieval phase, all those phases, so it actually works. And then I've been teaching them to apply that with new words in a way so it actually works. And at some point, they will become the dyslexia that way, because they learn to read like everybody else does in the whole world, with very little difference. Because saying someone has dyslexia doesn't mean much, because it's different dyslexia for everybody. And I'm like, what kind of dyslexia do I have? And they go, well, I don't know. And they bring some papers. Well, I have a long list here of things I can't do. Okay. And I had kids, I've been doing demonstrations and so on, in front of people. 45 minutes, I worked with one kid. He went from dyslexic with diagnosis to not being dyslexic anymore. And started to read books and did well in school. So yeah. So what I'm planning to do is to release a program, hopefully, because I also have some issues, not with reading, but with energy. I have something called ME, which is a chronic energy issue. That means I have brain fog, focus of attention, concentration issues, because it's really hard. It's a quality of life thing. So I'm hoping to put it together, a program that you can have later, if all goes well, during the winter here. And I did a workshop, this is many years ago, and I had one-day workshop, right? I had like 10 kids with parents, parents working with kids. That's how we do. We do a feedback system, with a parent or a friend can help you, do the feedback phase, because there's a lot of feedback you need to do. So, and I asked them, so why do you really think that you can be here one day and this is going to help your kid? Be honest now, I said, and I had a parent, yeah, why do you come here? Well, you have to try everything, they said. That's how bad it was here in Sweden. I don't know how it's in your country, but probably not better. So I said, okay, let's take your kid and put him up on the board, and asked the kid the questions, and I wrote down how they did things. And the kid was like, "That's what you're doing." The kid was like, "Yeah, okay, I want you to do this," and I started to reverse it for them. And after 3 hours of that, with every kid in the room, going through that, the parents goes out and apply the same thing. And in many of those cases, the kids doesn't have dyslexia anymore. And when the parent works with them, and okay, do this, and they kid go, and then they start reading, and the parent, "Are you reading?" And the kid go, "Yeah, mom." And the parent go, "What just happened?" Arthur C. Clarke, he was an engineer, and he was actually creating math for the moon, spaceships going up in space. But he also wrote science fiction, and he had a great quote from the 60s that was saying that when you do things that other people think is magic, it's indistinguishable from science. What I've been doing works, because I can teach it to you as a parent, if you have a kid like that, and you can apply it for your kid, asking them questions, getting the feedback, and then help them to be better. And at some point they don't are dyslexic anymore. It's kind of weird for a lot of people, because when you can do things, which I've been able to do, people keep telling me it's impossible. And I'm like, but I've been doing it. So how can it be impossible then? Anyway, I wanted to keep this short. That's the question you can ask your kid. Ask them to spell out cat, listen intently what they are spelling out loud. And if they spell it like that, or something like this, C, and a break with the word AT, that means that the word looks like that for them, and it shouldn't look like that. It should look like CAT, 3 letters together. Maybe they spell it like this, C-A-T. Again, that's not how you're supposed to spell it. You're supposed to spell it C-A-T. The reason why I can't go through here in this video, but I go through that in the program, and why all these things happens, so you can get your own, tool set to help your kid overcome dyslexia. And if you're dyslexic yourself, listen to this, you say, "Wow, can it really be true?" Yeah, actually. But I understand how you read. My sister's husband, this is over a year ago or something like that, he was telling me, I was talking about my work in dyslexia, in the field of dyslexia and working with dyslexic and such, and he was telling me he was reading slowly. And I said, "Okay, that's nice. What do you mean by slow?" I said, "You have to be specific when you're asking questions like that." And he said, "Well, I read 1 letter at a time." And I kind of stopped and looked at him. He's like 55, something like that, 50, whatever, right? It doesn't matter. He's over 50 years old. And I look at him, "How long does it take for you to read the newspaper in the morning?" "Oh, I don't read newspapers in the morning. I read the headline." Okay, that's slow. So I told him, "Show me how you do it." He showed me how he did it, and I said, "Have you ever thought about doing this?" And I told him what to do. And it took 2 minutes. Not kidding you. And his head basically exploded. What, And a few months later, this is, over 6 months ago, he and my sister came by and had a cup of coffee. We were, chatting a little bit, and my sister was telling, "Oh, I'm in a book club, and I'm reading this great book." And she said, "Oh, yeah, cool," I said. And I gave the book to my husband also. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm almost finished with it." And I kind of looked at him and said, "Okay." And I said, "You do know that I know that you used to read very slowly, and now you're reading books?" Because here's the thing. Previously, when he was reading 1 letter at a time, it took him 3 months to go through a news magazine, one of those small magazines with cars, rally man. He was into, cars and rally, driving, and all that stuff. And it took him 3 months to read it, because it was very interesting. Now he was reading books, and I looked at him, "You do know that I know that you used to read slowly?" And he's like, Yeah, because he said, well, now it's easy. Knowledge that I have and the way I've been teaching people works to overcome dyslexia. And hopefully I can get the program together in a way that allows you to, because it's a lot of feedback involved and questions to ask and understanding of the, it's a memory issue, right? Encoding, retrieval, and verification. And if those are not automatic, it's going to look for all those pieces to put together, and that's going to slow down reading, it's going to slow down comprehension, and now you're going to struggle. And some of you may even think you're stupid. You're not dumb, because you lack the same sequence that people use that reads naturally. That people say, well, it's natural. Well, it's not really natural for some people, right? And once you automate that sequence, the baseline that I'm teaching people, you can learn to overcome dyslexia yourself. Well, actually, it helps have someone to help you through this process. It's preferred, because otherwise it's easy to be overwhelmed. The feedback is the key point there with another person, and it's asking questions and guiding. It's not that difficult, but you need the information, obviously, and I can't deliver all that stuff in this video, but hopefully I can make this happen this winter. We'll find out. Anyway, I'm Rob. I make it better. That's what I do.